welcome to our annual Lifesavers Recognition Awards ceremony. It is my pleasure, on behalf of Egan Maritime Institute, to recognize Nantucket Cottage Hospital for partnering with us for this important event. I am thankful to our committee of local leaders representing our first responders: Fire Chief Stephen Murphy, Police Chief Bill Pittman, Harbor Master Sheila Lucy, former Master Chief of the United States Coast Guard Brant Point, Christopher Switek, President and CEO of Nantucket Cottage Hospital, Gary Shaw, Vice President Community Relations at Nantucket Cottage Hospital Foundation, Courtney O'Neill, Shipwreck and Lifesaving Museum Manager Charles Allard, and Vice President of Egan Maritime and Chair of the Lifesaving Museum Committee, Jessica Guff. This team reviews all rescues put forward for consideration. This year is like no other. We have seen people step up and take charge by putting themselves at risk without asking for any reward. When COVID-19 entered our lives, many individuals and groups stepped forward immediately in order to support our community. To our neighbors who have risked their safety for our protection and the ability to keep moving forward, a heartfelt thank you. Among these folks are our mail carriers, our mental health professionals, our grocery store staff, our taxi drivers, teams and teams of mask makers, post office staff, pharmacy staff, our liquor stores, coffee shops, retail stores, restaurants, our ferries, our planes, our FedEx and UPS drivers, our bus drivers, our gas stations, banks, animal hospital, dentists, our school staff, and of course our EMTs, lifeguards, fire, police, Coast Guard, and hospital staff. But I need to also give a special shout out to the crew at Channel 18, whose lives I think changed dramatically as soon as COVID entered. I think they must have quadrupled, if not more, their schedule, and they do such a wonderful job keeping us connected with smiles on their face, and they are always there for us. So thank you very much to our friends at Channel 18. To all of the folks I've mentioned, and for those I have not mentioned, without you all, our lives would have looked very different. We thank you for your bravery and your willingness to go to work every day to show up in a world that remains full of uncertainties. You are our unsung heroes, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for keeping us safe and connected. It is important on today's anniversary of 9/11 that we maintain the tradition of recognizing our heroes who go above and beyond. This year is no different, other than being virtual. Please join me in a moment of silence to remember those lives lost on that fateful day. Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce and welcome someone who probably needs no introduction since arriving on the island early spring due to the last few months of daily community updates that he has provided, and that is our Nantucket Cottage Hospital President, CEO, Gary Shaw.
Good evening. I'm Gary Shaw, President and CEO of Nantucket Cottage Hospital. We're once again so pleased to partner with the Egan Maritime Institute and present this special recognition of individuals in our community for their extraordinary efforts to save lives, whose training and sense of responsibility prepared them to take action under difficult conditions. As always, we purposefully recognize these members of our community on September 11th, a day when our nation remembers and honors those who we lost 19 years ago, as well as the first responders who bravely risked their lives to save others. So tonight, I hope you'll join me in celebrating these individuals from our community for their incredible life-saving efforts, while also reflecting on what this day means for our country. On behalf of everyone at Nantucket Cottage Hospital, thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Jessica Guff, Vice President and Chair of the Nantucket Shipwreck and Lifesaving Museum.
Thank you for joining us. In these socially distant times, it's almost easy to forget that we are part of a greater community. It's not hard to focus on the people that you're sheltering with, but those outside one's immediate circle can appear distant or even frightening. That's why the people we honor today are remarkable. They went out of their way to help strangers during a pandemic. First up, Captain John Flynn and the crew of the Highline Fast Ferry Gray Lady 4. Around 9:30 p.m. on the night of Saturday, June 27th, Captain Flynn was navigating the channel from Nantucket into Hyannis Harbor when he heard a faint cry for help. The pilot house window was open, and the captain and first mate, Rob Willett, heard it again and were able to spot a person in the water. Captain Flynn instructed his crew of 7 to go into a man overboard procedure. First mate Willett and crew members Sam and Harry Euskaitis, Jason Fashada, Zach Adam, and Ashley Green sprang into action. It was tricky maneuvering the ferry in the narrow channel, but Captain Flynn was able to get close to the man in distress. The crew dropped a Jason's cradle down into the water. It's a U-shaped device that the person in the water needs to crawl into in order to be hoisted up to safety. The man in the water was in his late 70s, tired and cold. Hypothermia was setting in. He didn't have the energy to get into the cradle, so crew members had to pull him in. As their captain proudly told me, the crew did an amazing job. It was wonderful to watch their training pay off like that. Almost everyone on board, from a FedEx employee who was a passenger helping the crew hoist the rescued man up and out of the Jason's cradle, to the snack bar concierge who called EMS, they all worked as a team, a community, to save a life. There's no doubt that the man who had fallen off a Steamship Authority freight boat earlier that night would have drowned had it not been for the captain and crew of the Gray Lady 4. As first mate Rob Willett told me, it's a good thing Captain John likes the warm air, because if the windows had been closed and the AC on, we would never have heard him. Here to accept Egan Maritime's Lifesaver Recognition Day Award on behalf of himself and his crew is Highline Captain John Flynn. Thank you, Captain Flynn.
Thank you very much.
This is a commendation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives. You and your crew will be receiving these.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you kept the windows open, too. Next up are Nantucket's own lifeguards, Matt Finley and Marcus Gold, and fishing charter captain and small business owner, Corey Gamble. Matt's been lifeguarding on Nantucket for 7 years and Marcus for 6. Corey owns Bill Fisher Tackle and has been taking people out to fish these waters for over 20 years. June 14th is very early in the season for lifeguard beach patrols, but with COVID, more people were on Nantucket than usual, and many of them were outside on the beaches. The wind was blowing at 25 miles per hour that day, with higher gusts. Matt and Marcus were near Ladies Beach when they sighted someone in distress. That person was about half a mile offshore, being pushed out to sea by the wind. Without hesitation, Matt and Marcus began to swim out. As they got closer, they saw that it was not one person but 3, a small child on a paddleboard, a man swimming next to the paddleboard, and another man on a surfboard. The wind was pushing the paddleboard faster than the man next to it could swim, and as the board with the child on it drifted further out to sea, Matt and Marcus caught up with the distressed swimmer, the child's father. He said, "Go save my kid," and Marcus immediately began to swim towards the child. Determining that the father was in decent shape, Matt went to help the father's friend, who was on the surfboard. Just at that moment, Captain Corey Gamble and his boat arrived. Corey had been getting phone calls and texts from people on the beach to alert him to the trouble. He'd been scanning the water for fish when he saw people far out in the sea. As he approached the group, Matt pointed at the child on the paddleboard, and Corey pulled up alongside the child, his father, and Marcus. It was difficult getting the 7-year-old into the boat as he didn't know what was going on. Corey then picked up Matt and the surfboarder. Once on board, as Corey put it, getting people warm was a challenge. Corey gave them all the clothing he had on board, but the surfboarder had hypothermia. Not wanting to make the group get back into the cold water to swim back to shore, Corey radioed ahead to make sure an ambulance could meet the group at Nantucket Harbor. Harbor Master Sheila Lucy and her team, Assistant Harbor Masters Shane Carey and Patrick Finley, and Lifeguard Supervisor Nina Nickel had prepared Matt and Marcus well during their lifeguard training. They were the first responders in this early in the season rescue, and Captain Corey Gamble helped facilitate what could have been a rescue gone wrong due to the strong winds and dangerous currents. Captain Gamble summed it up best. The lifeguards were incredible. Sheila Lucy on the ground was amazing. Everyone was so nice and grateful. It was a situation that ended with a terrific outcome. A fortunate outcome because a group of dedicated people came together as a team to help strangers. Here to accept the Maurice E. Gibbs Commendation are Captain Corey Gamble, Lifesaver Marcus Gold, and our own Egan Maritime Junior Mariner, Lifesaver and Nantucket native Matt Finley. And here is the Maurice Gibbs Commendation Award. Congratulations. Congratulations, Captain Gamble. Okay, you're also going to get a commendation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives, which we will be sending to you shortly. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your bravery. Our final award goes to Scott Silverman, a summer resident. At around 4:30 in the afternoon of July 27th, Scott's Beach was beginning to empty out. Scott, who has a home in Sconset, was enjoying the warmth of the waning sun when he spotted an older man of about 80 or 90 in the surf. The gentleman got knocked over by a wave, struggling to stand up. When it happened a second time, he didn't get up, and Scott's teenage training as a lifeguard kicked in. He started sprinting toward the older man. When he reached him, Scott found that he was still underwater. He grabbed the man under his arms and managed to raise him from the water. Scott told me the waves were so strong they pushed him right into me. The gentleman leaned on Scott and held on tight as they walked from the water to his beach chair. As Scott remembered, it was very rough that day. I was a lifeguard and I saw his distress right away. He was underwater and couldn't get up by himself. Once again, an unfortunate outcome was avoided by an observant and intrepid individual willing to help a stranger. Here to accept the Maurice E. Gibbs Commendation on behalf of her brother, Scott Silverman, is his sister Kim and his brother-in-law, Sasha Grutman. Congratulations to your brother. He's very brave. I'm sure you are as well. And you'll also be getting, or Scott will be receiving, a citation from the Massachusetts House of Representatives for his bravery.
Oh, that is really touching. We're very happy to be here. I'm sorry he couldn't be here himself to accept this, but thank you very much for all the work that you do. And he was very happy that he could have been there and seen what was going on and to be able to help the gentleman that was in distress.
Yeah, he saved a life. Thank you, Sasha and Kim.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening for tonight's awards. It's always a wonderful reminder of just how wonderful of a community we do live in. Please be safe, be careful out there, and be kind to one another. Until I see you next time, good night.